This looks like a job for
Brainiac.
I got you stuck off the realness. I got you stuck off the realness. I got you stuck off the realness.
So let's just get into it.
Hey yo, welcome to Tank Roll 101, where you learn all the ins and out of tanking with all the 5 power sets. With me, Nerd of Prey. Are you struggling with Tank Roll? Are you getting clapped by ads? Are you getting clapped by the bosses? Are you getting clapped inside the reg content? Well, don't get clapped no more. Map, step back. I got the clap down there. You don't want to cash that, homie.
Bruh.
We're gonna start off with artifacts. If you're a new player and you're trying to figure out what's the best tank artifacts, well, don't figure it out anymore, because it's right here. Manacles of Force, Mystic Symbol of the Seven, and the Lazarus Pit. Some players use Eye of Gemini instead of the Lazarus Pit if they pop Supercharge, and some players like putting in that Clarion because it's OP. You might see other players using the Dilistil Refractor, but in the end, at the end of the day, is Lazarus Pit, Manacles of Force, and Mystic Symbol of the Seven. This is what breaks your tank to become unstoppable. When it comes to support allies, Superman and Lex Luthor is meta. Superman gives you and your group a shield every time you use a breakout ability, and Lex Luthor enhances and increases the duration of that breakout ability. Nubia is good because she heals you a lot, but I've recently been switching over to Static because he gives you a shield. And I don't know if you figured it out by now, but a tank with a shield is broken. The more shields you have as a tank, the more broken you are. Let's move on. When it comes to the base generator mods, you want to go health at the top and you want to get dominance for the middle. That's about it. When it comes to your augments and your origin augments, you're gonna go with dominance with all 6 of them. For your gear mods, for the weapon, you wanna get the absorption adapter. Some people go with replenishing adapter and restorative, but I'd rather just get absorption adapter. When it comes to the head equipment mod, it depends if you use a supercharge as a tank. I use hibernation on reg as an ice tank because my ice tank is weak, but I could also use dust off as an ice tank, or if I was super speed, I could use dash attack. So it all depends when it comes to the head equipment mod. For the neck equipment mod, you want Fortified Assault because it increases your defense by an additional 10% while not blocking. However, some tanks do like to block, so if that's your personal preference, you can increase your defense by an additional 10 if you block, but I'd rather go with Fortified Assault. For the chest equipment mod, you want Hardy. It increases your health by 5%. That is really good for every tank power set. For the hands equipment mod, you want Regenerative Shielding. This is very good when it comes to tanking. Every tank power set will benefit from this because every tank power set should have shields. The more shields you have, the better. The leg socket mods don't matter. However, the feet, I would go with Deadly Block on this one. Now the back equipment mod is important, but it's going to be different for every tank power set. So for ice, you want to get Accelerated Winter Ward because it will reduce the cooldown of the main shield by 10%. For atomic, you want Accelerated Density. While I still got you here with atomic tanks, you also want the Supercharged Mass Density for the head equipment mod if you're an atomic tank. For fire tanks, for your back equipment mod, you want Accelerated Stoke Flames. Rage tanks should be using Accelerated Redirected Rage for the back equipment mod. And finally, for the last tank power, which is Earth, you want Accelerated Gemstone Shield for the back equipment mod. Have you ever heard players say skill points don't matter? Well, they're kinda true. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're running elite content, skill points matters. But if you're running reg content, they don't matter. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on skill points. So with that said, if you're a rage tank, you wanna start with health at your skill points and then move into dominance and then restoration. If you're atomic tank, you do the same thing: health, dominance, restoration. If you're a fire tank, you want to go restoration, dominance, health, or a little bit of all 3. If you're Earth and Ice tank, you want to go all dominance, then all health, then restoration. It all depends on what power you are, you feel me? Under the iconic tree, you want to unlock Hard Light Shield. Every tank power needs this. For the Rage tank loadout, Rage Bringer, Severe Punishment, Eviscerating Chain, Ire, Redirected Rage, and Hard Light Shield is what you want for your loadout. For the Atomic loadout, you want Atom Splitter for the first ability. Then you want Neutrino Blast for the second. Proton Remedy for the third. Mass Density for the fourth ability. Hard Light Shield. And of course, Density for the last ability. For fire tanks, you should have Engulf. Then you're gonna have Burning Determination. Stoke Flames for the third ability. Burnout for the fourth. Emulation for the fifth, and of course Hard Light Shield for the last ability. For Earth tank, you should have Earth and Grip, Fortified Golem, Soothing Sands, Brick Golem, Gemstone Shield, and of course your Hard Light Shield. And finally for Ice, you want Inescapable Storm. For the second ability, you want Reflection, Shatter Restraints for the third, Hibernation Supercharged for the fourth. Then you got Winter Ward Shield and of course Hard Light Shield. Now if you want to make any of those loadouts I showed you with any of the 5 power sets even stronger, just add a dash attack third shield to your loadout. You add this supercharge in there and you put that Eye of Gemini, ooh wee, you about to be broken. But that's if you choose to do that, you don't have to. Now that same ability dash attack for the speed movement tree can also be found in the flight movement tree, but it's called Dust Off and it has a different animation. And I know what y'all saying, but Nerd of Prey, who in the world would want to use flight as a tank? It's so slow and boring and you can't even move well with it. Well, hear me out, flight tanks are actually broken, you just don't know how to use it. If you're a new player and you found yourself making the #1 mistake, and that is creating a character and making them flight movement mode, well, you unfortunately picked the slowest movement mode in the game. But that doesn't mean it has to be slow. All you have to do is unlock these 2 allies, the support allies, Flash and Zoom, and they'll make your flight movement mode very fast, even faster than the super speed players. But more on that later, because I'm going to show you how broken flight tanks can actually be. When it comes to artifacts, allies, skill points, gear mods, that stuff only matters in elite content. If you run reg content, especially new players, you don't need to worry about all that stuff. I'm about to show you, with all 5 powers for tanking, how you can run reg content without any tank artifacts. You can run it with DPS builds. Here's my Atomic Toon. He only has 108 skill points. That's garbage compared to a lot of players on the community. You don't need tank artifacts. You don't need hardly any of the stuff I showed you. All you need is a decent loadout, and you need to know the fundamentals of tanking, which I like to call Tanking 101, which I'm about to get into. So let's talk about it. Here's my Earth Toon, only has 94 skill points, and it's spec'd as a DPS. I mean, all my tank powers are spec'd as precision DPS because it makes it easy to switch back and forth without using armories. It's kind of like having a life hack for the game without having to spend too much money and resources. You can basically do every role. You just gotta know what you're doing. I recommend going precision, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother video, so let's move on. Here's my Ice Toon, only's got about 110 skill points, and I'm switching the gear over to tank instead of DPS, and I only got DPS artifacts on him. And finally, here's my Rage Toon. I'm gonna do something different with the Rage character because this toon is actually maxed out, got a lot of skill points, and has 200 artifacts. So I'm gonna go straight DPS, no tank gear, DPS artifacts. I'm gonna use the Clarion, and we're gonna queue up here. Meps, man, get these loading screens out my face. What you doing, bruh? Now hear me out. Let me holla at you. Let me holla at you. Let me holla, 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 holla. Let me holla, 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 holla. you need to know the key fundamental facts of tanking. I like to call these facts Tanking 101 or Tank Roll 101, whatever you want to call it. So what this is, you need to know the key facts on what makes you survive as a tank. The first one is you do not want to be a slow tank. You want to be a fast tank. Here's what I mean by being a fast tank. You want to be the first one to get to the ads. You do not want to let the players in your group wait for you to get to the ads. No DPS wants to sit there and wait for the tank, the slow ass tank, to come and pull ads. You need to be there before the group is there. That way the group doesn't have anything to complain about. I don't know if you know this, but every tank gets blamed for everything. Tanks get blamed if the healer dies. Tanks get blamed if the group dies by mechanics. It doesn't matter. If the troll is not giving you power, you get blamed for it. If the healer is not healing, the tank gets blamed for it. So in order for you to not be blamed for these things, you need to be a good tank. And one of the first things you need to do is move fast. Don't be slow. Don't park your butt and wait for the group to freaking start the boss. You need to start it. You need to be there first.
Bruh.
Another Tank Roll 101 skill you need to learn before going out into the world of tanking is positioning. Here's a perfect example of what I mean by positioning. You gotta pull the ads. Once you pull them in, you have to make sure that your back is facing away from the group so that any damage that the enemy is inflicting upon you, it's away from the group, not hitting the group. Again, I'm gonna pull the ads and make sure that my back of my toon is facing away from the group. It's that simple. Another important strategy you need to know about when it comes to tanking is kite or kiting. This is the general information. It's a popular method of killing mobs of ads or other players by staying at a distance, using range attacks, running away whenever the enemy gets near. If you do this as a tank, you will be unstoppable. If you're still confused and don't understand, and words are not your thing, let's look at an image right here. You have little Timmy right here running around and flying a kite. Little Timmy is the boss or the mobs of ads, whatever you prefer. Let's just say little Timmy is the boss, Brainiac. And the kite up here that he's flying is you, the tank.
Bruh.
Here's a perfect example of what kiting should look like. And also, you must PvP the boss. That means if the boss tries to block break you, you must lunge him. If the boss tries to lunge you, you must block on the boss and knock him down. Doing this will allow the group to be saved. The boss will do less mechanics, less one-shots, and the boss will spend most of his time on the ground trying to get up. Also, pay attention. Look at my positioning. My back is not facing towards anybody in the group. Right here, here's Atomic Tank. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna aggro, and then I'm gonna keep my distance. I'm not gonna be right up on the boss. Why in the world will I be taking in all the hits? It makes no sense. Now, it is fun to take in hits, and I'm not saying you can't, but let's say if you have a trash healer, you're gonna sit there and take all those hits and force the healer to have to heal you over and over and over again, and then force the healer to run out of power just for healing you, and now the healer has no power to heal the rest of the group, and now the healer is gonna stress out the troll because now the troll is struggling to give the healer power because he has to heal you too much, and now the whole group is gonna die. You see what I'm talking about here? This is the fundamentals of tanking. You need to know this if you're gonna tank. It's not just about making a loadout and sitting in front of the boss and blocking and letting the boss hit you as much as possible. The best tanks avoid the damage, not take it in. That's how tanking works. You feel me? Here's the same example now with earth tanking. I'm tanking the boss and I'm keeping my distance. Right there it was kind of messed up. I have to get in close because I want to pop all my orbitals and I want to make sure all of the group's orbitals hit. So I'm going to stay in close and make sure I don't take much damage by popping my shields, popping some heals. But then I'm going to move back after all those orbitals hit so that I can keep my distance and not stress out the healer, and then not have the healer stress out the troll, and then the group won't die. You see, again, the best tanks avoid the damage, not sit there and take it all in. Even though it's fun to do so, that doesn't mean you should be doing that, especially in elite raids. In elite raids, you should not be nowhere near the boss as a tank. Now, you can take those hits, especially if you got a really good loadout with really good artifacts, but that's not the case every time. You feel me? Just avoid the damage as much as possible, and you will be one of the best tanks in the game. I promise you. Alright? Now, here's my rage tank. Like I said earlier, my rage tank is maxed out. I got over 860 skill points on this tune. All the artifacts are at 200. So what all I did is switch my role to tank, and I kept all the DPS gear the way it is and all the artifacts the way it is. All I did was switch the strategist card for the Clarion so that when I pop the weapon buff, I get an extra shield. Rage is kind of broken, one of the strongest powers in the game, but that doesn't mean it's the best power in the game. If I were to say the best tank power in the game would be ice, believe it or not, ice is the best tank power in the game. It's probably the strongest tank power in the game. When it came to survival mode, ice was literally one of the best tanks to use, because ice is probably the easiest tank to kite with. But you're gonna see here in a second, especially if you're flight. Now, I don't recommend being flight as a tank because it makes you slow, but that doesn't mean you cannot do it. I know many new players pick flight, so if you are one of those new players and you pick flight, don't worry. I'ma hook you up and I'ma show you the sauce on what you need to do with flight if you're a tank. Now, before I move on to flight tanking, you remember little Timmy? Little Timmy's flying his kite. The kite is you, the tank, and little Timmy is the boss, Brainiac. So now I'm gonna approach little Timmy and pull him in. You see, little Timmy now is going to get aggro, and then I'm going to fly up in the air, and little Timmy's gonna hold me in the air like I'm a kite. You see, same basic concept. Doing this will literally make you immune to damage. A lot of people underestimate flight because it's slow, but it doesn't have to be slow. If you use the two speedsters, you know, you can move faster with flight, especially if you get grounded. One of the speedsters lets you fly quicker when it coming out of combat, or coming out of being grounded. Like right here, you see I got grounded, but I rose right back up into the air because, you know, them speedsters, they're OP when it comes to flight. If you're gonna be flight, I recommend using the two speedsters, but that also kind of nerfs you. That's why I do not recommend flight. But you can use it, and it's actually pretty powerful if you know how to use it. I mean, look at this. I'm taking barely any damage up here. Nothing's hitting me, and I can do this the whole fight. You can do this in Elite too. It just makes you a little slower, that's all. But other than that, it's the same basic concept. You keep your distance, you keep the boss between you and a short distance, and if the boss comes near you, you just move opposite to where the boss moved, and then you move back and forth. If the boss moved towards you, then you go towards the opposite direction. If the boss comes close to you in that opposite direction, you see I'm moving back, then you move again to the opposite direction, and you keep on doing this over and over again until the DPSs kill the boss. It's that simple, y'all. Now, this one right here is really important. After defeating the first boss, you need to go in the chat and apologize for being a squishy tank to the group. Doing this will make the group accept you more. Don't ask me why, it's just how this game works. Everybody always blames the tank, and if you apologize beforehand for being a squishy tank, you won't get blamed for it. And finally, before I end the video, I just want to show you briefly how to handle ads as a flight tank. Again, you want to be there first. You do not want to be slow. Get to the ads immediately, pull them, and face your tune away from the group. That means put your back away from the group, like you're gonna see right here. Go over here, you face away from the group, and now the enemy is attacking you, and none of the damage the enemy is inflicting upon you is gonna hit the group because you're facing away from them. To do this, you just need to face your back away from the group. I can't stress this enough. I see so many tanks pulling aggro on ads, and then they pull the ads towards the group, and then now the ads are beating up everybody. It's hilarious. You don't need a tank like that. As you can see, just keep the ads in one spot, put your back away from the group and everybody will be safe. With that said, that's it for this video. If I continue, this video will probably be an hour long. I might condense this into other clips in the future. I don't know. We'll find out. But with that said, I hope you guys like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.
I got you stuck off the realness. I got you stuck off the